kind of related but off topic is they're called false memories when when we think we did something and we repeat
and it's something we saw on television.
It's something we never had anything to do
anyway,
with.
So I interviewed Arthur and I got him to tell me that's his story, and he'd never heard the Dan Aykroyd thing. This is what was so funny, right? So we were sitting at Irene's, actually. I remember this. It was over lunch. I'm doing this interview with Arthur, and he tells me the whole story, and it's great. And then I said, by the way, I want to show you something. And I slide one of these, I printed off one of these interviews that Dan Aykroyd had done with like Cigar Aficionado magazine or something. And Arthur looked at it and he said, what? This is my story, man. Why would he want to steal my story?
This is Arthur McGregor, right?
No, Arthur 2, the artist.
Oh, Arthur 2.
Yeah, Arthur 2.
Oh, I've been thinking of jumping in on this Arthur 2. I thought, well, who's Arthur 1?
No, well, that's you have to ask Arthur.
Okay. Arthur 2.
And
not
it is
Arthur
2
McGregor.
Roman numerals, by the way.
Okay. Yeah. An artist.
Yes, he's an artist, yeah.
Never heard of him.
He's done a lot of, in fact, I have, it's in the book, the painting of, that he's given me a couple of paintings, but I bought one from him. It's a painting of James Cotton playing his harp on Sussex outside of Louhibu, because when there was a crowd and not everybody could get in, Cotton they had a big long extension on the amp for his harp, and he would go out onto the street and he would play to the people out on the street.
That'd be so neat.
So Arthur did this painting of it, and I bought it from him, and I've used it in my book.
Was it hard finding a lot of good photos?
It was tricky at first, but then I got lucky. I mean, a lot of people had the odd thing, but there was a fellow out west who I've never met, a friend of Dr. John Hodgson's. John Hodgson himself was a folk singer back then. It was here. His younger brother, Pete Hodgson, better known as Sneezy Waters. There's the connection. John had this friend named Joe Miyanishi, a guy I've never met. And John, when I contacted him to interview him about the club, he said, I have this friend, and I think he's got a lot of pictures. And it turns out he had a lot of great black and white shots. And so he gave them to me and let me use them in the book.
And these are band shots or interior?
They're shots of
people?
Nev Wells and Pete Hodgson when they were just Nev and Pete. They were one of the first folk acts I ever saw. They came and played in the cafeteria at Hillcrest High School when I was there.
Wow,
yeah,
that's amazing.
Yeah.
How many acts? Is there a count on how many bands played in its total 10 years?
I don't think there's a count. There was one of the things that really got me going on this. A fellow named Jacques Lafort, who has since passed away. He'd never been to Hibu, but he'd heard about it. He was retired, I think, and he was really interested in that venue and in other venues. He wanted to see who had played in Ottawa, what musical acts had played in Ottawa, and he would go every day down to the microfiche section of the Ottawa Public Library, and he would document. He started documenting all the clubs using newspapers and stuff, all the clubs and the big halls and who was playing and what the dates were, and he ended up with this enormous chronology. I mean, it was like 4 inches thick, and it was a chronology starting in 1959, I think, and certainly going to the end of Hibu, going to 75. So he used Hibu, I guess, as the kind of spine of it, but he listed everything.
Wow!
And he approached Harvey Glatt and said, would you be interested in taking a look at this? He didn't do it for any reason other than his own curiosity. And Harvey contacted me and said, I understand you're thinking about writing a book about Louhibu. You should talk to this guy. So I went and had lunch with him, and Jacques pulls this thing out, and it was incredible. And that was my reference point. And there were gaps in it. There were the odd mistake, not made by him, but made by newspapers mostly. But it listed pretty much everything. So you could see who was playing at Louhibu on a certain night, and then you could also see who was playing after 68, the National Arts Centre when it first opened, or you could see who was playing at the Civic Centre. All the other venues. You could.
You come from an age. I'm sure you were at the Capitol Theatre.
Yes.
See.
Yeah.
I never saw it. I see pictures of it. That was probably the most incredible building Ottawa has ever had.
Yeah, it was beautiful.
And we demolished it.
Yep, we did. I know. It would never happen these days.
And Elvis played in that building,
yeah.
I'm pretty sure, and some other
Simon
people.
and Garfunkel played there.
Garfunkel and
Jimmy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Beautiful theater, but we're off topic. What happened? What would when were these shows? Were they evening, afternoon, or both?
They were evening. Evening, and then there was an after hours thing on the weekends. There was after hours that started at midnight and went till about 4 a.m.
Was there any beer being slipped in the back door?
Oh, I'm sure there was.
That? Okay.
Beer and other things, but yes. But nobody was drinking outright.
No,
they had to be careful of that because the authorities did have an eye on the place.
But during the day, what time did it open?
It would open mid-afternoon, I think.
For coffee?
Yeah.
People would just hang out?
People would just hang out. And on weekends, they had children's theater in the afternoon. And they had theater in the evenings, too. Like, there was a whole theater thing that went on there as well. Like, whole plays were put on.
Poetry as well?
Yeah, poetry. One of the big poetry readings in 63 was at the Bank Street location. They got Denis got money, like it was $600 or something from the Canada Council to do this poetry series over several nights. And, it was... Irving Layton was the big draw. They had to do 2 shows with Irving Layton because there were so many people waiting outside in the freezing cold to hear him. So they did stuff like that. The theater stuff, the people that came out of that, Luba Goy, and I talked to Luba, but she did stuff there.
There's a name I haven't heard in a while.
From the Air Force. Yeah. Saul Rubinek, who's still out there acting. Saul was out of that place. There were a lot of people. I mean, it was incredible. It was a real hotbed of creativity. This place. It was quite astonishing.
When the news came that it was going to close, what happened?
They did 2 weeks of farewell concerts.
They didn't try to raise money to keep...
No, it was pointless.
Oh.
It was pointless. They knew that the jig was up.
The end was near.
Yeah. So they did a couple of weeks of end concerts, and I think Bob Soucy and Bob Stark were probably the organizers and the hosts of that. I know that Sneezy may have been the last person to play.
Oh.
I think so. I'm trying to remember who the last person was now. It's faded from my memory, but it might have been Sneezy. But everybody was pretty down about it all because it had been such a great place. And the people that you got to, the people that came and played. When I talked to Tom Rush, he remembered the place. I talked to Taj Mahal. Taj Mahal came and played there a lot. Richie Havens came and played a lot. Richie Havens would come to Ottawa and he would play not just at Hebrew. He would go and play in these little tiny places, like for nothing. I tried to reach him and unfortunately couldn't because by the time I got to that, as he passed away a couple of years ago, but he was suffering from Alzheimer's. So that when I got to one of his family members who said there's no way that he would remember anything. So, that was too bad. But Taj would come. And Taj Mahal would very often go. Sometimes he would come and he would stay with another friend of ours, Carl Nicholson. And Heavens Radio would be jamming in Carl's basement, and Taj Mahal would be jamming with them. Oh. And occasionally, I have a friend Ian Feller, who spent some time hanging at Carl's place. And Ian told me that he said there were several nights on one particular occasion when Taj was in town where it was just him and Taj Mahal in the kitchen late at night, like really late, like 1 or 2 in the morning, something like this. And it was just and he said they weren't talking. Taj had this, as Ian put it, he said, that guitar that had that big steel front. And I said, National Steel. And he said, yeah, one of those. And he would just be playing. And so he'd be sitting there listening to him. And he said on about the second or third night, without ever talking, Taj finishes and he puts the guitar down. As he's leaving, he turns to Ian and says, you know what I like about you? And Ian said, no, what? And he said, your conversation.
Were there other staff there? Like serving coffee?
Oh yeah. There was a series of managers.
Right.
That did things. There were people who served, who served the coffee and the food and stuff like that. They were sort of part-time. Everybody was a waitress. Even if you were male, you were a waitress. They always referred to who's waitressing tonight. One woman, I think it was Lois Raitt, I think, told me that she was. I think it might have been Lois, but correct me, Lois, if you're listening and I'm wrong. Gord Lightfoot was playing. This is early on in his career. I remember seeing him in '65 playing there, and. He had a good audience, and he finished his set, and he gets off the stage, and she said to him, "You had a good crowd tonight. It looked like there might have been 100 people," and he just snapped at her, 103, because he had counted, because he got it. He was by the door, right? By sheer of the door, so he knew exactly.
The book is out. Some people have seen it, some others, but I'm sure a lot of people went racing to you and said, why didn't you ask me about that story?
Oh, Lord, let me tell you, at the book launch, I had a friend of mine, and I'll give him credit for this, David McDonald. This is his idea, and I think it's brilliant. He said, when you do a book like this, you have to have a fake book launch 2 years before you're actually going to launch it. Then at that book launch, people will say, well, you should have talked to me because I did this and this, and you gather all those stories, and then you actually can do it.
So is there going to be a revised or a volume 2?
There won't be. This is it. Nah.
Really?
This is,
it is what it is.
It is what it is.
Oh, well. I don't know if that's my copy. I haven't been able to buy it or look at it, but I'm really curious as to what's inside.
You can have this one.
Oh, that would be
there's
so
a hardcover version. There's a softcover version.
That's fine by me.
Yeah.
And
it's on Amazon, by the way.
I was going to ask, where can you get it?
It's on Amazon, and then I have a website myself that I'm selling it through, which is probably better than Amazon because then you don't have to pay for shipping or anything. You just pay for the book.
It's hand delivered?
Well, it could be, depending on how close to my house you are.
I'm
doing nothing.
You walk the dog and
I'll walk the dog
books.
over to your house, and
okay.
yeah, I'll bring you supper if you want. The website is weareasthetimesare.com.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's also available at the Record Center on Wellington, and it's available at both compact music stores. Perfect Books on Elgin and Books on Beechwood, which, of course, is on Beechwood.
Right. Excellent. Thank you very much for joining me this morning.
Not at all.
It's an honor.
I have to go back out into the cold.
I would be interviewing the Ken Rockburn. Seriously. Like 20 years ago, I wasn't sitting behind the mic, and I'd be listening to this legend, and it's like, if only. And here it is. It's amazing.
Stop it.
Ken Rockburn, Canadian legend, radio and television journalist and host, notable for his CPAC participation, CBC, and Shay. Get his book, We Are As the Times Are, a history of Café Le Hibou here in Ottawa, one of Ottawa's greater institutions. Again, thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
Time now for the BBC News.